I hope that I'm talking. Oh, okay. I'm just testing, 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 testing. And I'm double checking that my mic's working because I made some videos with no sound and that was awful. So I'm trying. Okay. So I'm about to start, but I'm just going to check a couple things first. Looks good. Okay. All right. So today, what we're going to do for the stream, am I streaming? Yes, I'm streaming. I'm live. Okay. Hello. So today what we're going to do is do the charcoal drawing and a grid portrait with a graphite. So I'm not going to be able to do both entire drawings because literally that would take hours and hours and hours that time that you don't have to be watching. But I will do a begin how I would start the emotional charcoal self-portrait and how to start the gridded self-portrait. And then I want to play around a little bit with one of the social issues um, brainstorm boards to show you why I use the Jamboard and maybe get you excited to join in and do that if you haven't done that yet. So let's see. Let's get started with the charcoal portrait. So you're supposed to either take a either look in the mirror, which I love doing portraits that way, or take a photograph, which I'm doing this time because it's a lot easier to demonstrate what I'm drawing and how I'm drawing from a photograph unless I'm actually with you. So I have set up this very emotional photograph of myself. Here, let's go here. And my emotion, I am, let's see, I am exhausted and frustrated and up all night watching, like wanting some news, watching the polls come back in. And so I'm all those things. And so I tried to make the pose of me looking like I was here. Ooh, there's two of us. That's really weird. Was trying to make it so that this is really weird. Okay, sorry. There we go. So I'm like doing this because I am like about to refresh my screen, and I don't know why there's two of those pictures at all. But anyway, I will see if I can get rid of one of them. But yeah, so I'm like about to refresh my screen and I'm like tired and I'm exhausted and I'm doom scrolling. I think that's the word. So that's what I thought of for today. So I am going to do a charcoal portrait of myself. And again, you want to crop it so that, like, if you do have a photograph where it's a lot, where your head is smaller, you want to crop it so that it's taking up most of the page and you're going to draw it really, really large on your 18 by 24 paper. So this one is significantly large. And also, I'm going to take a picture of it here. Um, what I mean is, I'm going to be looking at a different, larger picture of it, but you don't need that information while I'm drawing. Um, and so I can look over at that bigger version of the drawing. Now, I also took this picture with just one light on. So if you look at the drawing, if you look at it here, you can see that the light is coming from this side. You can see the light on the side of my face. You can see the light on my knuckles. Um, it is kind of an overhead light, so you also see shadows underneath my hand and shadows on this side of the face. So it's kind of coming from the upper left of this picture, and that's important too. So the charcoal emotional one, I am going to start over here. I want to make sure that you can see. I'm going to start with some vine charcoal and I'm going to tone my paper. I love doing portraits, especially from life, but I love doing them with charcoal where I can move things around a lot, meaning like move them with the eraser. I don't use pencil at all. I know some people have been doing it, but I don't think it's a really good habit to use both pencil and charcoal in the same drawing. So I'm going to just start by toning my paper lightly, but I'm going to be adding and subtracting so much. It's not really important to me that I get really um, It's not really important to me that I get super, uh, what's the right word? That I get it super smooth at this point because that's going to come. I'm not going to make it super dark. I'm not going to make it super smooth. I just like have to have something to start with. And honestly, sometimes that blank page is so terrifying to look at that blank page and you're like, I can't draw on this beautiful piece of white paper, but it's just a piece of paper. That's all it is. You might want to use a paper towel because you might not want to get that dirty. Um, I know one of you is allergic to charcoal. So there's that. Oh, by the way, right now I can't see the stream. So if so I will be checking back. I can actually do it now and just see if there are any questions, but feel free to ask them. I can't see it right now. Oh, I'm just checking it, but so if you want to say hi in the chat or ask any questions, I'll be checking it every now and then, but I am looking at a photo that's right on top of the chat. So I'll be moving it and looking every now and then. So, okay, so here we are. So I'm also going to sketch this out in a really gestural way to start. Like do not start with details. It's really, really tempting, not for this drawing. It's really, really tempting to, draw like a really detailed eye because maybe you really like eyes, but it's not useful because you're going to move things around. And I'm looking at proportions. So I'm looking at the image. I'm actually starting with my hand, which is not the focus of this exercise. But I'm looking at that photo, and the hand takes up like a huge amount of it. Um, so maybe not quite as huge as I've made, but it takes up about like almost between a third and a half of the front of the height of the paper here. So I'm doing a very, very basic shape of that. I am not getting, you can tell I'm not getting detailed, and getting that hand in later will take some time, but this is for placement because I also have to have my face. Now again, make your face large if you're just joining. Um, I want you to make sure that your head is as big as you're willing to make it. Definitely life size, but probably larger because what are you going to do with the rest of the paper? Huh? And it's easier to draw large in charcoal. It really is. So I am doing, like I said, a gesture. I'm looking for the general shape of things. And since I've got hands in my drawing, then I did that to myself. Now, one thing that I will not allow is a floating head. So you need neck, shoulder, I'm wearing this comfy hoodie, like that needs to be in there. You don't necessarily, I'd like it. It would be cool if you included hands and stuff like that, but you definitely, that's not required. Just no floating heads. Now in this one, I can't see my neck, but I can see the clothes right underneath my chin. The worst thing about a self-portrait is really just like looking at that head that's just kind of decapitated sitting there. So I'm checking my negative space. I'm looking, I'm saying like, okay, well, this seems like too much negative space. And it's possible the proportion of the paper is off, but I did another thing and I think it's not. I think it's the same proportion as this paper. So I did a little prep work earlier. I'll show you for the next when I show you how to start the gridded drawing. I'll use the same photograph but with a grid on top for proportion. So if you think the proportion is going to be too difficult for you, or you hate charcoal, or so many other, or you love graphite, there's so many reasons that you might decide that you need to do the other drawing. But you don't need, it's completely optional which one you want to do. I know I listed 4 choices. I'm going to take you through the first 2. They're the most basic skill type of drawing. So if you want to do those basics, if you feel like that's what you need to do, I would definitely pick one of the first 2. So again, this is a basic skill that we've been working on throughout the semester as far as laying things out quickly with gesture. I'm redrawing. I had to move the watch around. I was looking at where my Apple Watch was in relationship to the page, and now it's over here, and I think I need to make my face bigger or my head bigger, and that's going to bring me to another point, which I'm about to make, which I forgot to say, which is when you're drawing a head, one of the biggest mistakes or misconceptions or what have you is people will draw just the front of the face and not think about the fact that you have a side of your face. So I am going to take a second and come back over to the view where you can see me. Hey, and while I'm here, I'll check. Oh, cool. Hi. Got someone saying hi in the chat, and that's great. So and your name is Never Ever, and I know that you've said hi before, and I'm trying to remember for sure. Is it might be Ruya, but I'm not positive. So so if it's not Ruya, I apologize. But hi, Never Ever. So what I want you to do is think about your head for a little bit before you draw it. Um, we think about our faces as just this front part and it has like features on it. And a lot of times we think about our faces as being relatively flat, but our heads are the furthest thing from flat. Like, why didn't I bring my Halloween skeleton down here before? Because it's really good to look at. But if your hands, my face is about to get really dirty. I want you to take your hand and you touch the front and you see like okay your nose is obviously like this little mountain in the middle of your face. Your eyes are sunken into your face. If you think about a skeleton, think about a skull, it's sunken in, and then your eyeballs are actually like these round things that are sitting inside holes. It's amazing. You've got a top of your head and you see all of that, right? People often start their pictures um, with they start them with like the eyes really high in the top of the head, but you have all this forehead and then you have all this skull. You have to think about your whole head. Even though I'm looking straight at you right now, you've got this like side of your face. Like you can see because the light's coming from this side, that there's a shadow here that defines that side of my face. Oh, I'm sorry, V. Hi, V. And so that defines that side of the face, and then this is a different plane. So you have like all this stuff going on your face, and now I have charcoal all over my face, and I'm used to it. So I want, if you have clean hands or don't mind getting dirty, go ahead and touch your face, touch your, as long as you don't have any COVID germs, touch, 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 figure it out. Um, and feel the way things are, because that's going to be really important when we go back to drawing right now. So I'm going to show you what I mean, going back to the demo mode. So, um, okay, cool. So here we are again. And this is the part I was talking about right here. That's the kind of the side of my face. And it's really neat that I can plot that out before I even add any features. I could say, wait, this is, and since I have line charcoal, I can see there's a little shadow there. It's a little darker on that side. And I can plot that out and I can say, okay, so it's not quite a straight on view. Um, but it is um, so this is now the face from here to here. And you have this. So now I'm going to start plotting out, well, where do my features go? And this is where there are is a lot of information about proportions in the chapter, and the little details that make people a little bit unique are very important, but there are those proportions are also very important as far as like what is generally true about a human face. So I guess what I'm saying is the differences that make things unique are usually smaller than you think they are. They're important, but they're smaller. So we have a line. So I'm putting a line down what I perceive to be the middle of my face in this picture. So this is the side, so this is the middle. And then I'm going to start plotting out where the eyes go. Now I'm looking at the photo and I don't totally see the entire top of my head, but I'm also looking down a little bit. So I'm going to do a little measuring. And the eyes still are about at the halfway point between the top of the page, which is the top of my head, and the chin. So that's one of those things that people often mess up is eye placement. So just be really cognizant of that and really aware of it, that you want to make sure that, those eyes really are in the middle. Now, one of my I have a little tilt to my head in this picture, so my eye line's going to go a little bit more down this way, and then I'm kind of making it go around so you see how the head is round. So now I have this like cut in half this way, cut in half this way axis to help figure out where the rest of my features should go. So once you know where your eyes are, and this is your eye line, then you know that your nose is about halfway between that and your chin. And I'll double check everything. If your face is at a big tilt of some sort, it could be a little different, but otherwise, this is pretty good. Now I'm looking down a little bit, so there is a little bit of perspective change. Um, and so all I'm doing for the nose right now is like a dark shadow underneath the nose. Unless you have really strange lighting, you're going to have a shadow underneath the nose. And by strange, I mean, you're holding a flashlight up to your chin or doing something like that, which you're perfectly allowed to do, but that's not like your typical expected lighting. So here we go. Now, because of this curve, my nose probably needs to go more on the curve too. Might be overthinking this right now because I just want to get where it basically goes. So the next thing we're going to do is the mouth. And when you're trying to place the mouth, it's again going to be about halfway between the bottom of the nose and the chin. So you're kind of doing half, half, and then half, but maybe a little higher. But it's not like the top of the mouth or the bottom of the mouth. You don't want to think about the lips. You know, people's lip sizes really vary. And so but what doesn't vary is where the actual opening for your mouth is. This might be a good time to say I recommend not taking a photograph where you can see your teeth. I can give you pointers if you really, really, really want an open smile. Um, but I'm going to say probably not a good idea. So the mouth line, right now I'm doing a general thing on it, but I'm going to come back and talk about the mouth line. The mouth line goes right in the middle there, and then your lips will come up from there. Again, I'm trying to make sure my center line is correct and on a curve that matches my face. Okay, so let's place the actual eyes and see if this is working. Um, I think this went up too high. I don't think this line is, I don't love this. I know there's a slant, but it doesn't seem right. So I'm going to just kind of go with what I can see. Some other things about how you place eyes. One is that once you have, if you know where your nostrils end, you can bring those straight up, and the interior of your eye should be about where your nostrils end. Now that's not always true. Nothing's always true. Well, there's a few things, but so I'm going to place my eyes around here. I love doing eyes as just like eye sockets when I start them. I was talking about the skull before. I promise I'm not super creepy. I just really think it helps to have those kind of dark shadow caves to start with. And I think you'll be able to see why as I draw the eyes in. So these are not my eyes. I don't think the eyes are that big. And actually, forget that. Okay. We're going to get to the size of the actual eyes really soon. I'm just drawing like, the part of the skull that ends at the eyebrow, because the eyebrow is that ridge that where it becomes solid bone again above that. So we're going to do that. And then it's going to help me with my under eye circles, of which I have plenty. So that's good. And I might have lied about the nose thing. That's kind of working. Okay. Now, I'm I'm okay with my facial proportions right now. What I'm not okay with on this drawing is like how far this hand is from this face and how far this hand is from where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to quickly regesture those things in. Notice I'm not doing my glasses yet, but I didn't do my glasses yet, but I might actually do a little sketch for myself just because that'll help me figure out where my hand goes in relationship to my face. I'm certainly not going to do any details on those for a while. So if this is where my eyebrows are, then the glasses come below that. And I have probably never done a self-portrait with glasses before in my life. Um, just started wearing them. Well, I've had them since fourth grade. I just started wearing them regularly again as an adult last year. So I didn't, don't really, not really used to that as a something I have to draw. But let's check that out. Good to, that I'll challenge myself to do this. So and you'll see with the grid one is harder in some ways and much easier in others because you the proportions practically do themselves, but it's going to be a very careful pencil drawing, a very careful graphite drawing, which is more of a shading challenge than anything else. Charcoal, as I may have said, to me is easier in some ways, but this part is really challenging, laying out where everything goes and then coming back over and doing it again and again and again because, you know, I didn't, this hand right here now feels like it's about where it needs to be, but it's like weird and huge looking because I'm drawing a blown up drawing. And so it does feel like that. But it's going to add to the drama, which I want because I want to have that dramatic feeling I was talking about before. I just want this person, this me, to be portraying this feeling of just utter exhaustion with the doom scrolling. So, fix this finger. Wow, okay. These are fun because I never know if I'm going to be feeling on and having a good drawing day or, which this is fun for me, by the way, super fun. But I'm like, am I going to get this hand right? Or is this just going to be totally off today? Because that is a normal thing. Okay, but we're going to go back to, okay, I think I have things where I want them. I wanted to make sure that it worked to put the hands where I wanted them to be before I tried fixing things on the face because your background and other things that you include can can really add to, can help you figure out what everything else is supposed to look like if you get it all right, if you get everything placed correctly. So here we are. The sweatshirt actually starts down here. See, like the back of my chair. Okay, so all I've done is very basic placement. My eyebrows are gonna go here. My nose is still gonna stop around here. Let's go back to those eyes, because all I did was put in eye sockets. So when you do eyes, um, place them first. You don't want them to end up looking like almond shaped stickers on a face though. And that is really easy to do. So at first they'll probably look kind of like that. I'm not sure if I have the tilt the way I want it. That's the only thing I'm worried about with these eyes. It kept looking wrong to me, so with the tilt. You don't want to draw one eye at a time either and then try to match it. You want to kind of draw them together as a pair so that the reason is that they're hard to match. So now you may not have a perfectly symmetrical face, most people don't, but you do want to have that general feeling. Now, your eye, if you're looking straight on at yourself, which I am not in this one, there's an eye width between each eye, and then another, which there kind of is here, but then there's another eye width on the side of the face, and there'd only be one, and then there'd be a whole eye width over here. As the face turns, you lose space over here and you gain space on this side. So if you have any specific questions, please let me know in the chat. Um, I can see it now. I moved the picture so that I could see it. Okay, so back to the eyes. Um, let's see. So I want to give you my tips on each of the features as we go through them. So I've spaced them. I made sure there was the right amount of space in between, and pay attention to that. It's going to be different for everybody. And I started with them super dark, and now is kind of when I'm going to start using both charcoal and my erasers. Um, here. Um, this one, of course, is great, but these are good too. Any of your erasers are fine. But this one, of course, is great for drawing with. Okay, so I'm going to kind of erase out lightly the whites of the eyes in this picture so you can start to see where the eyes are supposed to be. And I can start to see where the eyes are supposed to be and see what else I have to do to them. Um, what's great is there's all this natural shadow. Like you might not want to think about under eye. I mean, I wanted to emphasize my my dark shadows under my eyes because that was part of what this drawing was about. Um, and you might not want to, but just like a subtle version of that can really make it make your drawing feel more accurate. So here we're going to go. So I'm bringing out my compressed charcoal now, and you can always, you can also use, I think you have a charcoal pencil in your kit as well. So the pupil of the eye is one of the absolute darkest spots. I'm going to go ahead and try to put those pupils in. And in my picture, I have tiny highlights in my eyes, but highlights, and I do feel like I look a little dazed or, kind of dead-like, but you want to bring, in most cases you will want to bring out the highlights in the eyes, and I will do the light highlights that are there, and otherwise you do feel kind of vacant or dead. It's light reflecting in your eyes, and it's a beautiful thing. So now I'm going to look for the light and dark structure around the eyes, and to me that's really important. So I'm going to erase and shade. So I see there's a little highlight here, I see a little bit highlight around here. You notice I'm kind of smudging as I go, so I'm trying not to, but I'll have to go back over things. Um, Pay attention to eyelids. I have heavy eyelids, so you can see my entire eyelid in this pose. Not at, not at a lot of people, a lot of times, and depending on the pose that I'm in, you wouldn't be able to see the whole eyelid. So you want to make sure you're only drawing what you see. I'm never going to draw eyelashes at this stage, and I'm probably never going to draw eyelashes unless I'm doing in this kind of a drawing. If I'm doing something highly photorealistic and enlarged, then maybe I would. If I was wearing false eyelashes when I took the picture, or had really, really, really amazing eyelashes to begin with, because I don't, then I might draw them in. Just be aware they can look really fake, because if you can't see the pores of somebody's skin, you probably can't see the eyelashes either. So it depends on how in depth and how granular you want to go. I was just looking here for a charcoal pencil, and I can't. Oh, and I found it. So you should also have this You should have a charcoal pencil like this. You can use that. I wouldn't use graphite, and I wouldn't use it until you're trying to get some smaller details. But even now, I'm thinking I want it. I mean, I'm not that far along in this drawing, honestly. Oh, my pencil sharpener already broke on me. Well, that's not. Well, this will do for now. So, I'm seeing some things I don't like about this eye. Like I have it. It needs to tilt down more. It's tilting up the wrong way. So, I'm going to constantly rework things. And I think if I can, that's not really a specific technique I can show you, but I want you to see that that's just part of it. That's the fun and the beauty and you're trying to find the right line and try to see what, try to find that angle that makes something look like what it is. Um, Easier said than done. I did a digital piece yesterday and it involved I I wanted I wanted to, I was drawing from some photographs and it was digital, so I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna try to trace these characters, and it 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 was almost as hard as drawing from scratch because trying to find those pieces that really define somebody can be very difficult. So I'm noticing a few things here, like the glasses aren't in the right place. If you have the choice, don't draw glasses. But no, I mean if they're kind of part of how you see your face, you're gonna want to draw them. That's It's gonna come in lower like that. It just might help me figure out the whole structure, but I know most people won't have that. So I don't want to spend too long on figuring out how to draw glasses, but you want to just um, continually work around the drawing. See, I didn't want to go too far with that eye or that eye socket or those glasses, that side of the glasses until without coming over here and fixing this situation over here. And I am seriously flummoxed. Okay, when I pulled my charcoal up and I look at it, it's like it is definitely the glasses are going down, but for some, and the eyes are going down. So those angles become really important. And look, I just kind of drew them across and it's all a mess now because of that. So I'm gonna fix that. And you'll see if you try to do the grid version that you'll have a much easier time of those sorts of things. But it will also be a pretty intense project. So I like how I started the eye, but it just wasn't right. I need the eyes to go across like that. So drawing a line across that shows you, guideline for yourself, which I did earlier and then still ignored, but that's really, really important. So look at me go. I'm gonna make these like dark circles again, except now I know where things are supposed to go. This is kind of a guideline at the top of my glasses. Let's make sure there's a bottom line that's the same angle. That might help me figure things out. And that makes sense too, because look, this hand doesn't come up that high in relationship to the glasses. So, oh, okay. So, starting again. And then I'm going to put the eyebrows up here, um, and the glasses. And yes, I am tempted just to have sunglasses like this, but I won't. I'll show you guys how to make it work. I'm going to thin out this side a little bit because I think I had too much, because of my angle, I think I put too much face on that side. Self-portraits can be so frustrating, but I think they're good things to do every few years. Kind of see how you're changing and see what you look like. And I don't know, it's neat. It's really neat. It's like a good practice no matter what kind of art you make. And they're fun to look at of like different artists, how they make self-portraits. Okay, so I feel better about the eye angle, like a lot better. So I'll have to adjust the other features to make sense with that. Oh, I see your question. Yeah, there are four. So for anybody who um, had the same question that V had, there are four different options for your self-portrait. So the main assignment is a self-portrait on the large paper, but there are different ways that you can do it. And so this is the first way, which was the emotional self-portrait um, with charcoal. And so that is what this is. So I'm going to come back in, try to figure out where these eyes go. And then the second one that I'm going to show you is the using graphite and also using the grid method for accuracy, which can be very helpful. So again, I'm placing these approximately an eye width apart. I'm not forgetting, there's that little pink part in the corner of everybody's eye, that tear duct, that remember, sometimes people don't remember that. And you don't have to start with the details, but it can make a big difference to include details like that. So I'm going to try to put these back in and see if I like the shape this time. Okay, better. So as I was saying, I like having all this shadow here. It's going to be great. So I'm going to go ahead and put my irises and pupils in. I've got brown eyes. They're pretty dark. I'm just going to go pretty dark, and then I'll go back in with the eraser to fix things. Um, and I see already that I need to go back in and cover part of that eyeball more with my eyelid. Um, okay. Now, so I'm just using the corner of this eraser to reshape that iris right there. And then I'm going to use the eraser to make sure I can come in with that, this side of my eyelid, which is lighter than this side, as I'm seeing it. And then there's a shadow on my face that my hand has pretty much gotten rid of over here. So that's the side of my face again. Now we're kind of getting some structure here. And again, I'm using the compressed charcoal now that I'm a little further along. And I'm going to have to switch to the other drawing soon, but I want to tell you more of my ideas for faces and eyes and specific features. So now you don't have to do them the same way I do. I just erased out that little um, lower rim. You don't have to do them the same way I do, but I think it really helps to see other people draw sometimes. Um, the main thing to think about with the eyes, as I mentioned earlier, but not while I was drawing eyes, is that they are round, little round things. So if I picture this as like a big ball on here, you're only seeing part of the eyeball. So that'll help me place my shadows under my eyes, kind of round it out, and that helps me place there. So I'm kind of showing that roundness and how that fits into the face. And then also, even within the part of the whites of the eyes that you can see, so like that part of the eyeball, you can then leave some, either add or leave some shadow right in the corners of each of the eyes, because that's accurate. It's like shaded like a ball. And I think if you don't think about the anatomy, that's just something that's harder to notice. I mean, you could just see it and do it, but I think it's harder to notice. So we have this here, trying to find where the light is hitting different parts of my eyelid there. So again, I want to add in a little highlight on the eye. I think it's where I see it in the photo, and it's not super pronounced in this photo, but you have those because your eyes reflect light. So make my eyebrows just really general smudges right now. I want to talk to you about the nose a little bit, because noses are arguably the most frustrating part of the face for people to draw. And I told you before, just go ahead and kind of do a shadow below it. I mean, I'm trying to look at the shape of the bottom of the nose, but you want to look for that shadow. You also want to look at the kind of the different parts of the nose. So I'm going to go back to my vine charcoal for a minute because I don't want to outline anything too much. I'm not going to leave them all there. The thing is, noses don't have lines around them. There's no such thing as a line, on your face unless you have like eyeliner or whatever, or the mouth line. But there's not. Noses don't have lines around them. They're just made up of different values. So one of the hardest things about drawing a nose is that when you do that, when you draw lines there, like people will draw a nose like this sometimes, right? Or like Okay, maybe a little more sophisticated like that. And it looks weird, and it's because there's no lines there. It's just like the same color as the rest of your skin is, and it just has shadows that make it stand out. So I want to when you draw your nose, look and try to find the ball of your nose, that soft part of cartilage that doesn't exist on a skeleton because it's just like a soft thing, and you can actually like draw the ball in where you see yours, because everybody's nose is a little different, and then like look at the bridge of your nose, that's like the middle, where um, often there will be like a really big highlight on the ball of the nose and another highlight on the bridge of the nose or a shadow around it. And then in this case, I have light coming from this side. Then I was going to say you've got this, and then the sides of the nose. So I have this side. I think I made my nose a little too wide, but maybe not. I don't know. I'm going to just see what looks more realistic to me. Um, and then I have this side. So this is kind of the basic structure, but I don't want to leave those lines around things. I just want to use that structure as a way of thinking about where the shadows are. So if I'm thinking about the ball of my nose as being a ball, I can look and kind of see that there are some shadows around the edges of it, the way there would be in a ball. And if I could just kind of shade the whole thing even for a second and come back in and use a highlight, that's pretty nice. Now, right now, it still looks silly. I'll admit that. So I'm going to come back with my compressed charcoal. The This side is the darker side of the nose because of where my light is coming. You usually have a little shadow on both sides. You don't in this case. This is really a highlight. Well, there's a little shadow, but it's most of it is highlight. Some shadow from the glasses. So this is lighter, but not as light as um, and then the middle is darker, but not as dark as this. This is the brightest spot on the nose, is this highlight on the ball of the nose. And then I do see a little highlight going up here and then more light shining on the side of the nose here. And it gets kind of stopped by that ball of the nose. So I was glad that I had that ball of the nose drawn out. So it'll make more sense in context of the whole drawing when the whole thing's shaded because I haven't spent a lot of time shading the rest of the face. But um, there's a little reflected light in here. Look for the same things that you look for in other kinds of drawings that we've done. There's reflected light on the circle or whatever. So again, let's go looking at the bottom. Now, normally if I'm looking straight on, you're just going to see my whole nostrils. I only see a little bit of my nostril here. Do not leave your nostrils out, but do have a shadow under the nose so that the nostrils themselves don't stand out like crazy, because this is the other nose that people do when they're kids, right? And you don't want to be doing that nose, but you also don't want to do a nose where there are no nostrils because that's not going to look right. And so I am going to go in and I see a little piece of skin on the back of the nostrils that's coming out and actually use my eraser to kind of go around there and highlight that. So I love working reductively when I'm doing portraits. I feel like I'm building this face. Um, I'm not totally thrilled with it. Like, I don't think it looks exactly like me right now. So there's probably things that I will go back and check and do because I'm into doing this portrait now. So I'm probably going to finish it. Um, but there's a few more things I need to talk about. Okay, so we're going to do the mouth next, and then I'll come up and talk about hair a little bit, and then we'll move on to the gridded self-portrait. So, um, now there's something right under your nose, right? Those little things. It's really hard to not make that look like a Hitler mustache, but you have something called a philtrum, and that's just a little indentation that meets at the middle of your lips. So I already kind of put where my mouth line is supposed to be. But I want you to be really careful when you're drawing your mouth line and do it kind of like a contour drawing because, as I may have mentioned before, the mouth line is it's like one of the fingerprints of your face. It looks the most like you. It makes you look like you. So I'm gonna come back and make sure that I have it. And I think everything on this face, I think I might have to move I'm looking and I'm noticing that I probably needed more guidelines to keep my tilt the right way because the nose didn't tilt along with the eyes. So I'm gonna do a little fix on that first. And I will come back to this. Still got my general idea on the nose. Um, but you see, this is what I'm expecting people to do. I'm expecting you to really kind of push, put down charcoal, take off charcoal, move things around, start with that gesture, compare and contrast, look back and forth, see what's working and see what's not working. If you can't do it, sometimes you just have to ask somebody that you live with, like, please, can you look at this with me? Because something looks off and I'm not sure what it is. And they'll usually be able to tell you just by playing a little game of which one of these is not like the other. It's a lot easier when you're not the artist. So I'm looking at my mouth line. It looks like it's like at the ends, it like goes up a teeny bit and then down. So I have like, ooh, I'm gonna smile. Nope, I'm gonna frown. Like that. Everybody has a natural resting face. I hesitate to say RBF, but I will. Okay. Um, and then I wanted to say what I don't want you to do, I don't want you to necessarily outline the lips entirely. I'll just show you. This is gonna look really kind of cartoony, maybe a little bit fake, like it's not awful, but with the rest of what you're doing, it's not really the style. Um, and if you're not trying to look feminine, it's going to feel a little off too, much like eyebrows. So, um, if you have lipstick on, you might want to do that, but otherwise you probably don't. So you want to look instead. I like My tendency is to just kind of color in the upper lip. The upper lip is usually darker than your lower lip. I don't know, it just is. So I am just going to shade upwards so that that shows. And then for the lower lip, instead of connecting it the whole way across, I'm going to go in and create a um, a shadow underneath the lip that's going to show where that lip is. Because unless I'm wearing lipstick, my lip's not a lot darker than my actual face. Obviously, those things can all vary from person to person, but it's something to be aware of. So my face shape, I'm going to fix up my face shape a little bit. But I am getting somewhere with this one. Like, this is starting to work. So I have this kind of general shadow back here. Now I'm like, you know what? I've got this more like cheekbone sort of shadow that's coming down here. Okay, so I'm okay with this. Um, like I said, I'm kind of into it now, so I'm going to probably return to this. I want to talk a little bit about hair before I show you how you would start the other one, because the other one I'm not going to be able to spend as long actually drawing, but I can show you the setup, which is the really important part to get right. Once you have the setup on the other one, you're fine. So um, hair, and I also haven't drawn myself with blonde hair ever. Um, and long hair might be easier than short hair, but for hair, it's really easy to do what I'm doing right now and make it look kind of streaky and not like hair. It's just like lines or a pattern. And let's see, I think this needs to come in. But what we want to do is have some of this. I feel like I look too like young and alive in this picture because I was trying to get that really exhausted look, and I keep. All right, I just smudged the eyes on purpose. I'm gonna come back to them to try to make them look more exhausted. They look kind of like bright and happy, and that was not the emotion I was trying to convey, and I don't think it really fit. So there. Also, people tend to make eyes too big for the face. They make you, I don't know if it's because of like anime or just general beauty standards, but I probably made them too big as well. It's like an ideal that we have, but that's not usually, it's just a tendency that humans have. We draw, we put our eyes too high in the top of the face and too big as well. So back up here to the hair. Again, I'm going to try to make sure I have some overall tone. And even if you don't have like roots and dyed hair like I do, it is very like you are going to be able to see highlights and darker areas in your hair. So you want to find that middle tone to start with, and then find areas of highlights and areas of shadows. And that is the key, that what I just said right now. You want areas and areas. You don't want, you really, really, really don't want to just have like each individual hair come out, but you can put a few individual hairs in and it's going to be awesome. So, um, actually, I think my hand is gonna, I think my hairline starts a little lower. Everybody, no, hairline, how it relates to the eyes is different for everybody. People's hair starts growing at different places. I actually have a rather small forehead, and that's why I'm like knowing that I need to fix it, even though also looking at the photo, obviously. But um, that can help. So I'll come back there. I just wanted to make sure to get that right. So we have this, we have this. Okay. So I'm going to go in. Okay, I do have a few. I started doing exactly the opposite of what I said. So let's start with the bigger areas. I want to have my light chunks of hair coming through. That in this photo actually come from the very top. So I have to figure out what I might need to, I think I'm adding some more of my head on here than what's actually in the picture. Every now and then it's okay to take artistic license, but actually, it's often okay. It's just you want to make it look right. With something like how much hair I'm showing, I'm not too worried about it for something slightly more realistic. So it's clearly observational that I'm asking you to do, but not photorealism. Um, you can see, I hope, that the charcoal actually really helps with the emotional feeling. Going back to the hair, I'm going to go in and define the shadows next. Um, I did the highlights first because I've got the bleached blonde hair, but I would often define the shadows first and then the highlight chunks next. Um, this just works better for my current hairstyle, if you want to call it a style. Okay, so once you have that, now it still just looks like stripes and chunks, right? So you do want to make it look like hair. And what you're going to do is you're going to add hair, like little pieces of hair get added in, like little lines, not a lot of them, but enough. You're going to add that in with dark into the light and with light into the dark. And it's a little bit formulaic, but it's a good place to start when you're drawing hair. Um, because that's going to give you a better overall texture and feeling. So this, like I said, I'm gonna come back to and finish tonight, but this is what I've got for now, and I think it's a really good start. There's, I feel like I have a lot of work to do on the angles. I think I still messed them up, and that's funny that funny that I should do that because that's something that I always have to talk to people about finding those angles. It is a totally natural tendency to try to straighten out um, a face or a figure when you're drawing it. We all do it, and it looks like I really did it there. Um, although that might be harder to tell in the image that you're looking at because it's at an angle. Um, so again, lots of work to still go on it. I think it is portraying emotion though, and I am happy with it. What I'm doing right now. Here, let me go to a scene so I can talk to you. I I'm washing my hands. And because I'm going to switch away from the charcoal to the dun, 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 to the graphite, which is, I'm going to need some clean hands so I don't get that all messed up. And I'm just going to show you how to set it up. So I put information on how to grid out a photograph on Blackboard, and you are welcome to do it the hard way. But I learned something today, and I have like this, and there's this awesome there's this really ooh oh I switched to that. Okay, so now you're gonna see this whole thing, including like the YouTube thing. Um, anyway, go to this. I put this website up. Um, it's in the comments for the video. Um, in the video description on YouTube, and you can link to it. It's the Proportion Grid Creator. It is so amazing. It's gonna make my life so much easier now that I know about it. Anytime I want to grade something out. So this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna have your photograph, and then it says orientation and canvas size. So I'm using the same picture to show you how to do this. So I'm going to do landscape because that's horizontal, that's long, and then I'm going to do the size of my paper, which is 18 by 24. And so they're going to set up a grid for me that's going to work on top of my photograph. I'm going to go to the next step, upload your photo. This is free, you don't have to download anything. Super excited. Um, there you go. Upload your photo. Next step, if you need to rotate it or crop it, you can do that here, or rotate it in the next one's crop. I don't need to rotate it. Next, I don't need to crop it either, but you might. Now, I decided to do 1 inch grids. I think on the large paper it would be fine if you did 2 inch grids, but I decided to do 1 inch grids. So that means I'm going to have 1 by 1 squares gridded out on my paper that I have to do that as well. So then you click download. Okay, you do have to download something, but it's just the picture. So now I have this, which did not show up on your screen. It showed up on mine. Okay, now I have this, which is awesome. So that was a really fast, easy way to grid a photo. If you have a computer but you don't have a printer, you can obviously draw lines across your photo. You can do the math where you draw so many and then you make a larger thing um, for blowing it up because this is a smaller picture. It's not really 18 by 24, but it's set up for an 18 by 24 piece of paper. So it's super awesome. I really, really, really suggest using it. Um, this is something else we're going to look at in a little bit. So here we have the grid drawing. Now I'm going to move back to demo mode because you're going to need to grid that onto, I'm going to change the image out if I can figure out how. Okay, image. Browse. Hold on, I'm going to put the gridded one up for you to see. Perfect, okay. Okay, so now you have the gridded drawing, which I'm not sure you're seeing the whole. Oh, you are. Okay. Don't know why. Okay, so you've got the gridded drawing. So you have a grid on your photograph. That could have taken a lot longer. It could have been a lot more painful. So I recommend using that website, although it's not bad to learn to do it the other way. It's just super, super convenient that way. And then you're going to draw the grid on your paper. So like I said, I decided to do 1 inch by 1 inch squares. You could put that in differently on your paper. So that's important to be aware of because mine's going to be intense and like way too like you don't want to do any smaller um than 2 by 2. I mean any bigger than 2 by 2 I don't think, but 1 by 1 is a pretty intense grid. So you would grid out your whole paper every inch. So I have it, you can see I have it like half striped right now because my ruler, I don't have a yardstick down here, so my ruler only went halfway. Um, I'm drawing my grid out darkly because I realized that, well, it doesn't look dark to you. You know, you can't really see it as well unless I do that. So, um, you would want to do a a very different drawing. You would want to do a really light grid that you can see it, and that, I mean, you know, I would like to see it, but the point is that it's for you to see, and it won't be super obvious in the final version. So we're going to grid this out, and then you're really literally going to take it square by square. But you're not going to do it. But I do want to show you because it's going to be a totally different approach to drawing a face. Because when I was drawing the other face, I was thinking about the features, I was thinking about how they work, I was thinking about anatomy, and I don't want you to do any of that if you do the gridded self-portrait. I want you to literally look at there's something under here. I want you to literally look at each square and try to determine the value. If you want to change your picture to black and white, actually for either of these drawings, you can. Um, Change the photograph you're working to from black and white so that you can more easily match the values. That's fine too. These are just tools that you use. So you see what I mean. This even the gridding process can take a while. So you want to this particular assignment is both easier and harder. It is easier because if you follow the method, you will have a one-to-one grid and you will be filling in these little squares, and it's so much easier to just, you'll see in a minute, it's so much easier to look at something abstractly and look at how dark or light a certain square is and fill that in than it is to try to get the proportions yourself with a charcoal drawing. But at the same time, I'm asking you to do this one in graphite pencil, which is a really intense and long process in terms of like what, you know, how much time it's going to take to actually shade the whole thing. And you're doing the whole thing by shading. This is not a line-based drawing. You might not be able to help yourself and you might do a few little outlines, and I get that, but sometimes those can actually mess you up. So and the way they mess you up is you start relying on what you think you know about what the photo looks like, and you don't pay attention to the grid. So I think all of the drawing should be done piece by piece, grid by grid. So if you did two by two, it would be four of these at a time. The smaller the grid, the more accurate you can be, though, which is why I chose this really intense one. The instructions online are a little different because it's like if you were gridding it out and you had like a 4x5 photo that you had printed out and then you had to blow it up, you might grid that 4x5 every half inch. So it's so you have 8 squares by 10 squares, and then you would blow it up and make every one of those half-inch squares. I think that's right. You'd make every one of those you'd make it basically 4 times as big. So you would end up with a 16 by 20 grid on your paper because you would be doing 1-inch squares on your grid. So you're sizing it up. You're using proportion and math to do that. And you you want to make sure that you're not trying to always fit it into the exact proportions, but that you make it, you know, you blow it up by 1.5 or 2 times or 3 times or 4 times as big as your original is. But use all the paper, meaning don't cut it down. You might have to cut one side down if you had like a 16 by 20, but you want to use as much of your paper as possible. It's not an excuse to do a smaller drawing. Not that any of you would ever use excuses. So Okay. All right. All right. We're almost there. I'm glad I started ahead of time, but I did want you to see how I'm doing it because it's not, it always seems like a simple concept when you, until you try and sit down and do it. So I marked all of these off at 1 inch points. Um, I can't entirely see my 1 inch points right here. Oh, I only did them to here because that was 18 inches. Now I got to do the rest of them. Like, what's going on? So 1 inch, 1 inch. I don't know if you can, you might not see the edge of the paper right now, but you'll see it up here. Remember, I have to line it up with a 0 on my ruler too, because the ruler starts before the measuring starts, and that's true of a lot of rulers. Okay, so I should have them all now, and luckily I have this 18-inch ruler, so it's easier to do this than it was the other direction. I know a lot of you have them, as I have seen in your in your pictures. And if you don't, use something else. Find a straight edge. Figure it out. You can do this. Okay. So we have got this. So I've got my grid. And if your grid's right and your other grid's right, you've got something you can do here. So I am going to look at my grid in a bigger way. I've got to do the same thing I did before. Hold on 1 second and open up that grid version so I can see it large. Or I'll just, I've got ways. I've got ways. Okay, so I'm going to, now sometimes you would grid out your background too. I did not, I'll admit it, I didn't really think about my background. So I didn't really, so I'm probably not going to draw that part in right now. But this is where you have to make sure to count and figure out where to start each piece of your grid. And I do still need to see my actual, I'm not, hold on, I gotta see it larger. Take a breather for a second. If you're drawing along with me, um, you can, where's the grid? You can set up your own grid. That was, I forgot to say that. You know what? I hope that you guys remembered that I was thinking of this as a draw along. Because that was my thing, that was my thought. Okay. Because, and if you're watching this, I'll remind people so that if they're watching this later, they can do that. Okay. So I'm going to start from the edge of my paper and I'm going to count over and I'm going to start drawing aspects of this. So again, actually at the very, very bottom corner here, let me move it into your field of vision. This bottom one, if you look carefully, I know it's kind of hard to see, my sweatshirt is like already in there. It's like a little piece of, so it's like a dark area surrounded, like a darker area in the background. And this is why it takes forever, is because I'm saying like shade in each square at a time. Darker area in the background. And then kind of at close to the corner, it's also really dark, but not quite as. So this is a good time to really practice the different levels of value and use your different pencils. I'm going to use my 8B for that black. And I'm going to move my pencil different. I'm not quite doing little circles, but I like to move my pencil around so it's like lots of little directions. And you can come back. Like you don't have to do like a full, every single layer the first time you go through, although you could with grid drawing. Um, it's gonna be kind of hard to. You can see this is a painstaking process, but it has these. I posted some student results on Blackboard, and I had a feeling that some people might really enjoy this because you have a much higher degree of control than you do when you're just trying to throw it out there. So I'm gonna, you could start on the left and work all the way across, speaking of control, and then you wouldn't smear things. I'm gonna kind of count up and down and try to show you like how I would do the eyes, and maybe that'll help me figure out what I was doing wrong with the eyes on my other drawing. So I need to count over like where my eye starts, or I guess it's my right eye, but the eye that looks like it's the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can also number your grids so that you know. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna just do that up top. One. There, you can't see that. I'm gonna do it up top. You sometimes people have like an extra row, and sometimes people label their grids on their photograph too. This is just to help me. And it's kind of hard for you to see. I realize that, but I just labeled it up top so I can count down now to that corner of the eye. Um, and a lot of people do letters one direction and numbers the other. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's where the corner of my eye starts. And like I said, you might start all the way over here and spend a lot of time doing all that stuff, but I really want to give you another example of how to do something. And I know that none of us here are made of time. So I'm drawing what I see, and it's not the main part of the eye yet. It's the eye to the left of the face, and you have to be careful. Sometimes if you can print out your grid, sometimes that can be really helpful because you can cover everything but the part that you're looking at. Because like right now, it's really hard. I can only see this little tiny piece, and you don't know which part I'm looking at necessarily. Um, so that's kind of frustrating. Let me bring it up for a second. I don't know if you can see my cursor. You know what? I'm going to show you. I'm going to toggle toggle back and forth for a minute. Hold on. I'm just moving windows all over the place, but I'm going to show you my screen again. Um, yeah. Right, okay. So this is my screen, and so I was looking, and you can see where I am. I'm looking at this part right here. This is where I'm starting. That's what I counted to. That's where I'm going over. So we can go back to demo. I just wanted to show you where I was and what I'm doing, and it's just this little shape, and I see this little kind of triangular shape over here, and that's and then I it's better if you don't even name things. It's like I know this is part of the eyelid, but just like this dark shadow here, and that part actually goes all the way to the top of this little. It's really, you know, it would be a lot easier if I could just see it without the whole mess, without the whole rest of it, because that is distracting as all get out. So I'm making this little shape. This meets up here. This is not even halfway over, and that's fine. I'm looking at the side. There's another little shadow in here. I'm not sure what that is. I know that this area has a lot of highlight in it, so I'm leaving this white, or at least almost white, because I see some more highlight in the square below it. So what you see right here is extremely abstract. Like it's not obviously part of an eye, um, or shadows or any of those things. Now I'm going to just move over directly to the next piece where there's more of said eye. And I'm going to notice that the eyelid again, the top of it is right up here. And it kind of has a shadow coming in this way. And that that shadow is leaving this particular square that I'm in, it's leaving it about halfway down the square. So I'm using this quite a bit. Now, the main thing that I'm seeing in this is the iris. So I'm noticing also the iris doesn't touch. There's whites under the iris, and I didn't do that in my other drawing. So this kind of study can really help you figure out what you're missing, because I'm noticing that there's white under my iris when I'm looking at my eye. And this is still so again, I'm using my 8B, I'm using my darkest pencil. Um, I'm kind of being bold doing that, you might start lighter and then build up. Probably I should, but I don't usually. I mean, I do, but I do both. I have a heavy hand and I start too heavily. That's more my problem. I was in drawing class myself, and they would tell me that they would walk around saying, be more aggressive, draw more darkly. And that's what the teacher would say. He'd say that to everybody until he got to me and he'd say, oh, Heidi, not that dark. I was just trying to do what I was told. Okay, so I'm also, remember I was talking about the shadows inside the eyeball? Well, I see those here too. So it's still important to think about things that you know and how they work. So I usually prefer drawing the other method, but today I'm like, wow, I was having such a hard time with that eye. Maybe I'll actually get it now. So the next cube over, if you're following along with me at all, it is this cube right, this square right here. So on its own, I'm not sure I would see it as much of an eye. I have this dark thing here and then these dark parts on my glasses. But together, it's going to complete our eye. We'll go back here, and it's almost entirely shadow in the corner here, which does spill into the next square. And you're not, I'm just doing, sometimes I will do little tiny lines into the next square, but I try to make it one square at a time because it helps you stay honest with yourself about what you're doing, and then you don't end up like missing an entire thing and warping the whole picture. So I've got these. This one shows a lot of the glasses, and it also shows like a little bit of there's a shadow up there. There is a shadow up there, up in the corner. Doesn't It's a little lighter in the actual corner, but I can see darkness coming here. And we're going like this. So etc., 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 etc. Now the next one, this is going to help me with my whole tilt that I was having a problem with. So honestly, I usually don't grid unless I'm having struggles, and then I am all about the grid. But some people make gridding like a major part of their artwork, and there is nothing wrong with that. I'm looking here, and I think the shape is like this. And it's lighter. There's a little bit more shadow up here. I didn't really finish this square, did I? Come back to this one and put in like darker aspects on the glasses. Again, it's better if you don't even name what the things are. It's like, oh, there's a dark rectangle. Let me fill it in. And then you're more likely to see see the things you need to see. Like this comes out, this triangular shape actually comes out like a lot further than I thought it had at first. Like the corner of the eye and some part of the shadow, but when I was thinking that, I made it really small, but it's actually bigger. And then you just fill that in here, more shadow. So yeah, I am trying to finish each one as I go, but I'm sure I'll come back in for touch-ups and stuff like that. Also, this is helping me be honest about how like light colored the glasses are, for example, or how light my eyebrows are, things like that that you might tend to just make darker than they are, or just kind of emphasize because you think about them in that way. Um, but if you're just looking at values as you go, like that doesn't work. So I'm kind of skipping around a little bit here, which is probably not smart. Here, but I'm just filling in a little bit, connecting those glasses and making sure that it makes sense. And I think that it does. So I want to do the whole eye for you. So I'm going to look right under the eye too, because right under the main part of the eye, because it bleeds ever so slightly into the square below it. Then I've got like freckles and like other stuff on my face that's down at the bottom, and it's what's the general tone of here? It's not white. I can kind of fill in a light gray for most of this and then add to the top, which is really just shadow right under my eye. And this is, the opposite of what I usually say, because I usually want you to start really, really general rather than starting with specific things. But this is okay to start with specific because you've taken care of the whole proportion issue already just by doing the grid and following it. So, um, I think one quick thing I want to show you, and I'll bookmark all of this stuff, but you don't need to know that. Is so I think I hope you get the idea of the grid now. Um, you you would then fill the whole page like this. It's very slow, methodical building, which is very different from what was going on over here. And the looseness of this style, the looseness of approaching it this way is less likely to be as accurate as this, even though I was trying to go for accuracy. Um, but it also might be better for conveying that emotion the way that the artists that I use as examples, like Hata Kolwitz and Max Beckman, like they had the way they used charcoal was very emotional in and of itself. So I was hoping that that would help for you as well. I am going to really quickly, so that tonight you guys have a uh, brainstorm jamboard due, and um, some people maybe want to use one class out of three that I'm talking to right now. But I think I want to show you why I decided to use a Jamboard and not your typical scavenger hunt for this. Is because I really want you guys to brainstorm, and I'm just going to take a couple of minutes on this and show you what I'm talking about. So back to display. Okay, so here we are, and what? Okay, let me just move myself down. Hi. Oh, I still have charcoal all over my face. Okay, so what we're doing, I started it, and you all have a different. Each class has a different Jamboard. I started it with, um, okay, there's nobody on page 2 now because I moved everybody over, but I started it with like healthcare as a issue. And then I thought of Black Lives Matter, which may actually relate to healthcare, but not in an obvious, immediate way. Um, thought about big pharma, and then I was like, oh, pharma, drugs, so I kind of put some things that, because those are legal drugs, these are illegal drugs. So I kind of put some things that related to myself. Um, and then other people have started to fill things in, and this class maybe has done more than some other classes. So I want to show you some things. You can make these smaller and move them around, so we can try and stay on one page. I moved some over from a second page. If we have to do a second page, we can. But um, one thing that I think is really fun when we do this together is figuring out how things connect to each other. So instead of having like a list like there is down here, like where do things fit in? So I started moving things around um, to try to make them put together. So illegal drugs and police brutality are often related because of the idea that people, the war on drugs is sometimes used as an excuse for, stopping and searching, and these things escalate and turn into police brutality situations. And a lot of people suggest legalization of drugs um, as a way to help end things like police brutality and like the prison industrial complex, which would be another one that somebody could add on here. And if we were all together, I'd be writing them all down right now. But police brutality is also related to racial discrimination and Black Lives Matter movement. So these things I'm kind of clustering, and we could do arrows or not arrows. But I've kept racial discrimination here because not it doesn't just have to do with police brutality, um, although it does relate very strongly to police brutality. It doesn't just relate to the Black Lives Matter movement. Um, Even though like the Black Lives Matter movement grew out of police brutality as a response, but it also relates to healthcare, um, which is already on here, because um, if you read about it, I mean, there's a lot of racial discrimination in healthcare, and even down to like what studies get done, and so certain medicines are not tested on all groups of people. There's tons of discrimination within healthcare that is embedded in the um, history. So there's also so somebody put obesity, and well, that relates to healthcare, doesn't it? So I'm keeping that around here. Vaccinations relate to healthcare. Maybe I'll make them these like kind of smaller and kind of circle around healthcare. Um, Assisted suicide and euthanasia. Well, this is interesting because this is where I'm going to want to start putting arrows all over the place, because assisted suicide and euthanasia is a healthcare issue, but it's also like a pro um, it's a life issue. So right now, abortion's over here. I'm going to move abortion closer. Abortion can be considered a healthcare issue, or it can be considered. These two really strongly relate. Um, it can be considered an ethical issue, or it can be, a moral issue, but it can also be considered a healthcare issue. Um, and a lot of times, one of the main things that a lot of people are concerned about is like, well, what about abortion in the case of rape? Um, that's often an exception to rules against abortions, but not always. So that's something that, you know, is related there. And then it gets just kind of like a convoluted, like this chart goes all over the place, but overpopulation um, can fit with climate change, but it can also fit with abortion. Like, what if we didn't, you know, people have used oh, this is kind of going crazy, but people um, have used this is going to fit with racial discrimination too. There's this history in the United States of using um, abortion and forced sterilization as for people in poverty and trying and of like different, usually the African American population, really highly encouraging abortions among that population. And I'm talking like a long time ago. There were some very early feminists who were really interested in eugenics, which is awful. There's a very dark history to it. So I think that's obviously awful, but I'm trying to keep my opinions out of these things. But I am going to put racial discrimination pointing to abortion as well, because it it can be a related concept, and it has been in our history. So anyway, this is the kind of fun that I want you guys to have. I want you to try to find these different um, connections, and when you're adding your own, try to think, once there's all this stuff, try to think like, well, what else is there? What else could could go here? And I'm thinking like religion and abortion might relate. So maybe we need like one that just says religion, and then you have abortion and freedom of religion as two separate things that go around that. So like I could, but the religion itself might not be a social issue, but it makes sense as something to just kind of anchor those ideas. So I'm going to put like religion in the middle. Oh, that's not religion. Religion. We'll put religion in the middle, save, put it over here, and then that is going to relate. And that's also for some people going to relate to um, LGBTQ rights. Some people, freedom of religion might actually relate to that for some people because there have been some um, situations where people have said, well, I don't believe in LGBTQ rights, and so I shouldn't have to bake yeah, bake. I don't believe in gay marriage, so I shouldn't have to bake these people a wedding cake. I should be able to deny them service, and there have been some rulings saying that that's okay. So here I see some doubles, so try not to do doubles, guys. I already like erased one, but I don't know who wrote this first, but we have police brutality and police brutality, so I'm just gonna put those together. Um, this might be these are similar discrimination against LGBTQ community that's written in a different way, like discrimination versus rights, green energy, overpopulation really, and climate change and green energy probably should go together. And transportation is related to that, right? Because it's like what modes of transportation. It's not the only thing. I mean, transportation can go back to like classism or racial discrimination too. Like, not if people have different means of getting places, that's going to change their whole um, their whole situation. So I'm going to stop now, but I just wanted you to see like why I was having you do this all together, and you can come back into this one if you are in this class, in this section, or go into your own and have just as much fun with it, I hope. Like, feel free to move things around. It seems like the stickies and the actual arrows work the best. You can use a pen and draw on it, but then you can't move that anywhere. So that's kind of not as fun. But let's try to make a good board because this is helping you brainstorm for the next unit, and also might give you things to think about if you decide to do the emotional drawing. So I will answer any questions you have, talk to you soon, and I hope this was of some value for you. Okay, um, see you later. See you later once I figure out where I put the YouTube window that I can stop streaming on. Ooh, there it is. Okay. See you later. Bye.